enjoyed so much freedom for so long that we are perhaps endangered of forgetting how much blood it costs to establish the Bill of Rights. Felix Frankfurter. Good afternoon, contestants, audience, and judges. My name is Sydney Logan. Now, when you think of someone patriotic, who do you think of? Do you think of John McCain, who was a pilot in the Vietnam War, was shot down and captured? Or do you think of Eddie Murphy, a Medal of Honor recipient in World War II? Though these men are very patriotic, they're also war heroes. Well, what about the men and women who weren't in battle or in any military of any kind? Such as the 56 men who signed our Declaration of Independence. 56 patriotic men. They were the brains, not the soldiers. Have you ever wondered what happened to them? Because for all we know, they signed our Declaration of Independence, then went on with life happy and free like the rest of us today. Well, that's false. 5 signers were captured and tortured. 12 had their homes burned to the ground. 9 of the 56 died of wounds and hardship of the Revolutionary War. 2 lost their sons, while another had 2 sons captured. John Hart, one of those signers, was driven from his wife's bedside as she was dying. He and his 13 children fled for their lives. These men were fully aware that once that ink hit the paper, that they could perhaps lose everything. But they did so anyway. They didn't do it for themselves. They did it for their children and their children's children, and for generations on. We as Americans take that freedom for granted. I mean, I even do. We're just so used to it being there. But how often do we take that step back and think, I'm proud to be an American, or I'm glad to be in the country that I'm in? We even take for granted the small things, such as freedom of speech. Though we do cherish it when it may not be most needed, but when it is, we can take it to the extremes. Or it can do the opposite. It can be slowly taken from our fingertips without us even realizing it. Look at Asia and South Korea. There, the government controls the people. But here in the US, the government can't run without the people. We have enjoyed so much freedom for so long that we are perhaps endangered of forgetting how much blood it costs to establish the Bill of Rights. Felix Frankfurter. Now I challenge you as citizens, each and every one of you, to take that step back from your daily lives, to think, to see what a beautiful country we are and how lucky we are to be an American. And I hope that in hearing my speech helped you see that there is more to a patriot than guns and a uniform. Because for someone to be a patriot can be as much as having a pen in their hand and pride in their heart. Thank you. Have a good day.
You were stuck in morning traffic, so you decide to turn on the radio. The song is about to end. When the song is over, the radio announcer pauses. A plane has just hit the World Trade Centers. Good afternoon, judges, parents, and fellow contestants. After 9/11, many people were outraged about what happened that fateful day. One who was affected by the events of the day was Pat Tillman. Patrick Tillman was born November 6, 1976 in San Jose, California. He attended Leland High School and led the football team to the Central Coast Divisional Championship. He got a scholarship to ASU. That year, they had an undefeated season. He was named Most Valuable Player in 1997. Not only was he good at football, he was intelligent too. He received the Clyde B. Smith Award 1996 and 1997. After college, he signed with the Arizona Cardinals and played with them for 3 years, then turned down another 3-year contract of $3.6 million to fight in Afghanistan 6 months after 9/11. He died 2 years later, April 22, 2004, while serving in Afghanistan. Pat Tillman was in his prime and had everything going for him when the attacks of 9/11 happened. Pat took the attacks to heart. He saw a chance to give his life meaning and enlisted into the military. Now that I've talked a little about Pat, I bet you're wondering, what makes him a patriot? Well, you have to understand what a patriot is. A patriot is someone who is willing to risk everything for their country. That does not everything for the country. Pat Tillman died fighting for our country. He took that risk because that is what patriots do. If you were to ask him, are you a patriot, or do you consider yourself a patriot, what do you think he would say? I would feel that he would say he was no more a patriot than any other person, because Pat would not allow photos or interviews while he was serving our country. He felt he was no more important than any other military personnel. What role did Pat Tillman play? Well, he decided to enlist 6 months after the terrorist attacks on 9/11. He helped a struggling Pentagon keep the support for the war. America believed that if Pat Tillman wanted to leave his perfect life and sacrifice it for the war, then the war was worth fighting. Pat became the most famous soldier at the time. Some people even thought he would come back and do something even greater, like run for office. Sadly, that's not what happened. Many people loved and still love him. They loved him on and off the field. He was an amazing soldier and an amazing football player. I believe Patrick Tillman was and still is a true patriot because he died fighting for our country, leaving a paycheck of $3.6 million. That's more than most Americans will make in over 30 years. He was thinking of us before himself, thinking of our country before himself. Do you think of others before yourself? Do you think of our country before yourself? Take a minute and think. One such individual who thought of our country before himself, just as Pat Tillman did, was Travis Mills. Travis Mills is not as known as Pat Tillman, but he still served our country without thinking of himself. He lost his arms and legs after surviving an IED explosion in Afghanistan. He's been through countless surgeries and grueling pain. Ultimately, he wants to stand before his fellow soldiers and welcome them home for more. Again, thinking of others before himself. These people, including Pat Tillman, have taught me to think of others before myself and to help wherever my help is needed. This does not only mean enlisting into the military, but donating food to a needy family, volunteering at a soup kitchen, or just helping someone going through a tough time, just as our country was after 9/11. If Pat Tillman was around today, he would be doing something great and keep on inspiring people to do the right thing. Pat was a patriot, and a patriot's legacy lives on forever. In the future, there will be flying cars, and people will live on the moon. I hope the world will still recognize those who place others' needs in front of their own, to know what these people, including Pat Tillman, did, and what it means to be a patriot. Thank you.
How many of you out there are actually patriotic without an ounce of cowardice or hesitation in you? How many of you are willing to lay your lives down for the benefit of this country? My name is Abel Cherian, and I am here not to reprimand you, but to give you sound advice. As human beings, we are naturally forgetful. Because of this, we may lose respect, lose adoration, and lose our ability to sacrifice for our nation. But to redeem ourselves, we must remember what we stand for, what this nation stands for, and what patriotism stands for. Antonio Porcia, the Argentinian poet, once said, "One lives in the hope of becoming a memory." This quote states that the reason why people attempt to do the impossible is to be remembered. William B. Travis was a young man who went to war against the Mexicans in the Mexican-American War. He became the commander for the American Army, protecting the Alamo from the advancing Mexican Army. At the time, there were only 200 men at Travis's disposal, and he knew they won't win because of the staggering amount of men in the Mexican Army. Even after pleading and beseeching for more recruitments, they were still outnumbered. It is said that at the time of the war, just before the Mexican Army attacked, Travis drew a line in the hot sand with the saber and told his men to step over the line if they would guard the Alamo until death claimed their lives. No one knows how many stepped over, but we know that on that day, they all fought. Travis and his men embodied patriotism because they were willing to put the country's needs on top of their own. They used their blood to reinforce the foundations of this country. If we disregard their sacrifice, then their blood was utilized for a lost cause. Billy Graham said this about America. Self-centered indulgence, pride, and a lack of shame over sin are now emblems of the American lifestyle. People like Graham realize that America is not what it should be. We can see many instances in history where this predicament affected America. The one that populates my memory is the Civil War period. When America was young, it needed correct guidance. But when people like the Confederates encouraged the ability to force a person to live a life of servitude and harassment, then the virtues of America can become a little askew. But there was a man who used books, papers, and words as weapons instead of guns, cannons, and bullets to guide America down the right path. This iconic hero was Frederick Douglass. Douglass was born into a life of slavery. As he grew older, he received education and eloquence through the sacrifice of others. Even his daring escapades didn't incite as much patriotism as his speeches against slavery. His articulation deemed him more sophisticated than white men. Some of the white population even thought he was not pure black, but part white. Many despised him and plotted his death. Despite all this hatred and disbelief, through his words he was able to save the enslaved blacks. As responsible citizens, we must follow the footsteps of people like Frederick Douglass. Through Travis's and Douglass's actions and the situations of our time, we must realize that America must not be egotistical, cold-blooded, and ignorant so as not to upset the blood of those sacrificed in order to institute this country. This nation has survived through tough times and surpassed all obstacles because people still fight, people still die, and people still pray. But when all of our achievements go to our heads, we can become a little conceited. This conceit then muddles our morals, judgment, and intelligence to the point where we become automatons controlled by celebrities, sports players, and other people who truly didn't do anything altruistic to deserve all full adoration. But if we grasp onto the asset of modesty and correct judgment, we can make better our country. These kinds of problems deface the magnificence of America. I was born in an idealistic family where modesty and simplicity are our golden virtues. We use our knowledge to plan our every step and to ascertain what is right and wrong. But when we disregard these precautions, all doors of success that were once open for us will close, and we will be prone to receive problems. That is why I give you this advice, America. If you don't heed these words, your arrogance will be your downfall. But if you do, many doors of success will be open for you, and the dreams and ambitions of your creators will be fulfilled. May God bless America with prosperity and liberty. Thank you.
Duty, honor, country. Duty. Given service or business, active military service. Honor, showing of usual merited respect. Privilege. Country, land of a person's birth, residence, or citizenship. That's how Merriam-Webster's School Dictionary defines these words. For me, one word can perfectly define them: heroism. Good afternoon, judges, members of the audience, and fellow chairmen. General Douglas MacArthur once said, duty, honor, country. Those three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, and what you will be. This quote to me is like a light, not just a simple candlelight, but a light that blazes with passion and intentions of hope and security in the dark night of which none are found. Duty, what you ought to have. Most, if not all of us, think of the brave men and women who serve our country when this word is mentioned, whether in the Marines, Navy, Army, Coast Guard, Air Force, or Reserves. They, in my opinion, are the true heroes. They are the reason why our beautiful nation is undeniably free. Fighting, risking their lives not knowing if they would once again be with the ones they love. For some, the ones they love are the reasons why they do what they do. We, as Americans, as proud people of the country we love, all have a duty. It's what we ought to have. Honor, what you can have. When a soldier or police officer has fallen, we lower the flag half-mast. We build memorials for those who will always be remembered. We make special holidays for the events or people that move us the most. For instance, 9/11, Martin Luther King Jr., and Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. We show respect to the everyday people that make a difference every day. But we are these people. We set heroic, honorable examples for our future generations. Honor, what you can have. Honorable, what you can be. Country, and what you will have. Living in America, we know it's a country where we are united, as it is defined in our name. But the word united goes deeper than what we're called. It resembles our relationship with our troops. It resembles our society, our citizens. It resembles us where it matters the most. Without our citizens, America wouldn't be what it is. Besides a vast amount of land, if our societies fell apart, our troops would have literally nothing to protect. Without our citizens, you wouldn't have our proud troops. Without our proud troops, you wouldn't have our beautiful nation where freedom rings. Our country, America, what you will have, what we do have. Duty, honor, country. Those three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, and what you will be. These very words said by General MacArthur will forever to me be an inspiration. In our country, in our everyday lives, even in all of us, each and every one of us have qualities that represent heroism, something someone can look up to, just like how we look up to those who've served. And if you are a veteran, thank you so very much for your service. Most of us have a hero, but remember, you can be a hero to someone else. Before I end my speech, I'd like to ask my fellow Americans a question. In the eyes of another person, have you ever wondered if you're their hero? Thank you.
America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. Good afternoon, judges, guests, fellow contestants. My name is Kareem Valdez, and I'm an 8th grader at Saguaro Ranch Elementary. I hope my speech will inspire you to do the job at hand. So, who exactly said these words? Harry S. Truman did. He spoke those words January 8th, 1947. And well, who is Harry S. Truman? Harry S. Truman was born May 8th, 1884 in Lamar, Missouri. On June 28th, 1919, he married Bess Wallace, and the couple had one child together named Mary Margaret. He was also the 33rd President of the United States of America. He was part of the Democratic Party. He ran office April 12, 1945 to January 20th, 1953. Also, under Truman, the U.S. successfully concluded World War II, which ended September 2nd, 1945. He later died December 26, 1972, at the age of 88 in Kansas City, Missouri. What did Harry S. Truman mean by to do the job at hand? He meant to see that America is not severely damaged or devastated by repeating depressions and a long duration of unemployment, but that instead, America as a country, America built an economy so effective, so changing, so successful, that each resident in the United States of America could rely on opportunity and on protection for themselves and their own families. That being said, America had to be an absolute leader, no king to fear. America as a free nation, free people, they were to do as they will. America didn't grow and become great because they feared the leader would punish them for less. America did because they want to stay free. From the courage of all people in the United States, America stood up against absolute power and became great. For example, on September 11, 2001, America once again demonstrated the acts that President Truman was referring to in his quote. When the Twin Towers were attacked by those planes, Americans didn't run and hide. They ran towards those burning buildings because America was built on courage. Firemen, policemen, even those who were off duty showed up at those burning buildings. By following through with what they believed in, the heroes of 9/11 showed us the triumph of the human spirit. The first responders were willing to face death and risk their own lives while following their single-minded goal of saving others.
That unbeatable determination to do the job at hand is why they didn't think twice about running towards the danger, because they didn't only believe in what Harry S. Truman said, but they lived it. America didn't fall apart, but rather America came together. How does this quote affect me in my life? I do the job at hand every day. I wake up early in the morning to get the quality education I need. I work very hard to exceed and meet my expectations in life, which are being a teacher someday. Because as Harry S. Truman said, America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. Thank you.
Hello, judges, guests, and fellow contestants. My name is Ethan Kessler, and a quote I've heard recently is, America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. This was said by none other than Harry S. Truman, the 33rd President of the United States. While I was thinking about this, I didn't quite understand it at first, so I broke it down piece by piece. America was not built on fear. The definition of fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. So what Truman meant by this is that we were not afraid or we didn't have fear to leave everything behind and come to America. We had the courage to leave, which is the next part of Mr. Truman's quote. The definition of courage is the ability to do something that frightens one. America had a lot of courage in all the wars and battles that we've been through. For example, the Revolutionary War. The Revolution was between the 13 colonies and the Kingdom of Great Britain. It started in 1776 and ended in 1783. Then there's the Civil War, which is also known as the War between the states. It was between the North and the South. The purpose of the Civil War was for the abolition of slavery. The Union ended up winning and slavery was abolished. Imagination is the next part. The definition of imagination is the faculty or action of forming new ideas, images, or concepts. America had plenty of imagination with our inventions over the years. An invention by a very patriotic American, Thomas Edison, with the light bulb. It took Edison over 10,000 tries to make the light bulb. He said he did not fail 10,000 times, he just said that he found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. This is the kind of determination an everyday American needs to have. My father always tells my siblings and I to never give up and to finish what we started. Edison was determined and didn't give up, and without the light bulb, we wouldn't be able to light up a room or use the cell phones in our pockets. Our nation has been through so much. Some was good and some was bad. But there's one question: where are we today? We have come so far since we became a free nation. We have developed in technology, government, and architecture. With technology, now we have cars for transportation, cell phones for communication, and games or toys for entertainment. In government, we have different branches. The House of Representatives and Senate make up Congress, which makes up the legislative branch. The President makes up the executive branch, and the Supreme Court makes up the judicial branch. For architecture, there are better homes for shelter, offices for work, and schools for learning. But there's one thing left for me to say with where we are today. We are here with our freedom. We had the unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. So now I think I know what Mr. Truman meant by what he said. Not everything comes free or easy. You have to have courage, imagination, and determination. With that, you have to work for what you want, and maybe you'll just get there.
For this is what America's all about. It's the uncrossed deserts, the unclimbed ridge. It is the star that has not been reached, and the harvest that is sleeping in the unplowed ground. Judges, fellow contestants, and incoming spectators, welcome. My name is Jila Sabir, and this wonderful quote was said by Lyndon Baines Johnson, the 36th President of the United States. Before I start, I want to ask you, what was this quote telling us? Now let me take it from here. This quote is not explaining what a big, epic failure we are. It explains that anything in the land of the free is possible. It explains that we can cross those uncrossed deserts. We can climb those unclimbed ridges, and we can reach for the unreached stars. Although you're probably asking yourselves, how? And to answer your questions, America. One word, 7 letters, one grand meaning. America, where the impossible becomes the possible. The land where the skies are as blue as the ocean, land as free as the wind, and opportunities as far as the eye can see. Although we are perhaps in such great danger of forgetting how much blood it costs to establish the Bill of Rights. Now this quote was said by Felix Frankfurter. What is the Bill of Rights? You're probably thinking. I can tell you, it's not the cappuccino you get from Starbucks, nor is it those good-looking fries you get from McDonald's. It is the laws in America that protect your rights. Come on, look at Afghan and Pakistani women and girls. They don't have rights. Since they have no rights, if they protest, speak their minds, or even go to school, they'll be shot by Taliban or punished. So as you can see, after thinking about this and the quote said by Felix, I realized that we are in great danger. If it were African Americans from back then, they would cherish every second of their life that contained freedom. Why? Because they were the ones protesting for justice, freedom, and liberty, not us. So this showed me the importance of the Bill of Rights and how valuable freedom is. The idea of the Bill of Rights came to a man named James Madison during the 1780s. James' intention was to answer the criticism of anti-federalists. In the ratification debate, anti-federalists opposed to the Constitution. They complained that the new system threatened liberties. Now, I am glad to call America my home, and you should be too. If it weren't for those complaints they made, there wouldn't have been a Bill of Rights. Imagine that. So, as you can see, citizens, America is a beautiful country. Let's continue to unite this world and to create a place that is too good to be true. America, the land of the free, if it weren't for those braves. Thank you.
A true patriot is loyal to not just their country, but to the people in it. Welcome judges, parents, and fellow contestants. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that if we are to have peace on earth, our loyalties must become ecumenical rather than sectional. Our loyalties must transcend our race, our tribe, our class, and our nation. And this means we must develop a world perspective. To become a true patriot, we must follow this quote and believe in not only the ability of our country, but of the people in it. Martin Luther King Jr. taught us a lot in his life, and we see it everywhere we go.
It is not natural to discriminate against others for any reason, and true patriots are loyal to people, not objects. To illustrate, Dr. King was passionate about equal rights his whole life. He was born on January 15, 1929, and worked to find a world perspective wherever he went. Although his main objective was to find equal opportunity for people of a different race, he believed that all people, rich or poor, girl or boy, fast runner or quick learner, they deserved every right in his eyes. He also believed that world peace is important and those who work to keep it are patriots. He showed us that patriots are considered such, not because of what they accomplish, but because of what they help others accomplish and what they do for the greater good of all people. For example, when you see someone donate to a charity, help a handicapped person down the stairs, or pick up trash on the ground, they are being a patriot. A patriot can but isn't limited to flying a flag or serving in the military. Patriots aren't just devoted to their country, but to the people in it. My math teacher, Miss Cagle, is a patriot. Not only does she work weekend shifts at Luke Air Force Base, but she is an inspiring teacher that helps me with the mental crisis of Algebra 1. This is what a true patriot is, someone who helps others. However, many people still believe that discrimination or suspicion against people that look a certain way is a natural human instinct. But as is so clearly shown in Rodgers and Hammerstein's lyrics from South Pacific, this isn't so. You've got to be taught to be afraid of the people whose eyes are oddly made and the people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. In the past 46 years since Dr. King's death, we have gradually made a change against this type of thinking. However, this will be the generation that makes a patriotic stand and diminishes these biased thoughts that have become habit. It is our responsibility to work our hardest and become more than those before us. We will become loyal to all people, and in doing so, change the world. Additionally, a patriot is loyal to not just their country, but to the people in it. They are respectful to not only the flag, but to all 313.9 million other people that live in this country. They are respectful to the president because of the people that believe he will do great things. And they show their appreciation for those fighting for our freedom overseas in any and every way they can. A patriot works his or her hardest for the benefit of others. Martin Luther King Jr. said we can have world peace if our loyalties become national. If we take our devotion past the items that represent this great nation and onto the citizens that make it what it is today. How will you work to be a patriot? How will you change the world? How will you respect those around you? How will you show your loyalty to the citizens of the United States of America? Thank you.
Would you drop everything, say goodbye to your friends and families, leave for 2 months, maybe 2 years plus, just to risk your life for the crazy society we have today? Welcome, judges, audience, and fellow contestants. My name is Janessa Hill, and I attend Sun Valley, and I'm in the 8th grade. Think about this. When people say patriotism, they think of American flags and simple things like that. But when my dad says patriotism, he says, quote, "It's a dedication to your country, showing love and loyalty, being willing to put your life on the line for something even bigger than yourself." To look back at what he said, I realized that he has embodied all of the things he described, which is why I believe he is a true American patriot. As you may assume, being in the Navy and a Department of Corrections officer shows a lot of patriotism within itself. At least 6 times a year, there are knife fights, riots, and drug overdoses, which can make people pretty loopy. But every day, he walks in there with his head high, showing the prisoners who's boss. When it comes to the Navy, once, maybe even twice a year, he has to go serve at a naval base in Virginia. If he didn't love his country and wasn't a true patriot, he wouldn't waste all of his time keeping the robbers and prisoners in jail. He even shows patriotism in our own home. Have you ever walked into someone's house and seen 2 huge American flags on the wall? Well, if any of you ever end up at my house, you will. On the left wall, there is a huge naval flag, and on the right wall, there is a huge American flag. It's kind of funny. All my friends come over and they walk in, and the first question they ask is, "Are your parents overprotective?" And in most cases, the answer is yes. But my dad doesn't care what people think about him. He'll put flags on the walls, on the cars, and on the clothes, which isn't the best look for him. But he takes a lot of pride in his flags, which means he must love his country, right? But loving your country is not only from using your stripes, it's from actually earning your stripes. One way I've discovered he's earned his stripes is we all know 9/11 was a horrific and memorable date in U.S. history. But on that day, my dad was at a gas station getting gas when all of a sudden, in a concerning and shocking voice, he heard, "The towers have fallen." He thought to himself, quote, "What should I do?" End quote. At that moment, he felt sorrow for the victims, hatred, shock, and complete helplessness. Then he realized, quote, "If I had to step up, I would go. If I got drafted, I would go. If my country needed me, I would fight." I've realized that he has the mind of a true American patriot and naval sea captain such as John Paul Jones, who gave the Navy the first acts of heroism and victory. Just think about it. What if your dad dedicated himself to people like you, and you? Would you be standing right here, right now, giving this speech? I don't think we pay enough attention to all the men who fight for us, which is why I'm standing here now before you, showing my appreciation for what he does. Everyone close your eyes. Imagine. It's a beautiful day, the sun is shining, the birds are chirping, then all of a sudden you hear a bang, bang, bang! Would you run and hide, or would you fight for the people who are in danger? I believe if I were put in that situation, I would run and hide. But if my dad were put in that situation, he would step up to the plate and be the true American patriot that I know he is and has always been. Thank you.
For this is what America is all about. It is the uncrossed desert and the unclimbed ridge. It is the star that is not reached and the harvest that is sleeping in the unplowed ground. This quote was given by our 36th president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, in his inaugural address in 1965. In the previous year, President Johnson had increased the Vietnam troops from 75,000 to 125,000, had announced his plan to implement Medicare, and signed the Civil Rights Act, which prohibited most of the unfair practices used to prevent various minorities from registering to vote. Good afternoon, Chair, judges, fellow contestants, and guests. I'm Carolyn Melke, and I'm here to tell you the history of 3 inspired, proud, and brave Americans that greatly influenced our past, our present, and our future by crossing the desert, climbing the ridge, and reaching for the stars. President Johnson had a vision of an America where all men were created equal. Before President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, minorities possessed the right to vote, but encountered several obstacles, most notably in the South, including polling taxes and literacy tests. This immediately excluded minorities that were poorly educated due to segregated schools, and minorities below the poverty line due to unequal pay. But our commander-in-chief knew that we were all Americans, that there was more that united us than divided us. In 1961, Johnson's predecessor, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, set forth a challenge to reach beyond the stars and put an American on the moon. With this proclamation, patriots throughout the country set forth on a quest to put an American on the moon. In 1961, we as a country knew very little of the moon. We knew nothing of its gravity, nothing of landing a spacecraft, and most important, we didn't know how to get anything or anyone back home from the moon. But through dedication, perseverance, and bravery, just 9 years later, on July 20th, 1969, astronaut Neil Armstrong walked onto the moon and into history, completing President Kennedy's challenge. Franklin Delano Roosevelt served as the 32nd President of the United States for 12 years. During his terms, Roosevelt lowered the unemployment from 25% to 14%, increased the national gross income 34%, and led our country through the Great Depression. President Roosevelt is the only president in American history to have served 12 years in office. And what makes this even more notable is the fact that during his terms, Roosevelt was suffering from the chronic illness polio. President Roosevelt displayed great courage, integrity, and perseverance while he governed his country. He eventually led the United States out of the Great Depression, but not without a cost. President Roosevelt had continued to inflict countless nights of stress that withered his body even more. And after serving for 12 years as president, Roosevelt died in office, leaving a nearly recovered America grief-stricken. All three of these men gave countless hours to make our country a place where anyone, black or white, rich or poor, man or woman, could cross the desert, climb the ridge, and reach for the stars. They made our country a place where any and everyone could act like they wanted, pray like they wanted, and be who they wanted. They made these great United States of America a place where all could discover deserts, climb never-found ridges, and reach for new galaxies. Thank you.
Can you imagine living in a world where every child had the opportunity to get an education, where every adult had the option of going to college and gaining the career that they'd always wanted, where you could start a family, your own small business, or could one day make a difference in humanity, forever leaving your mark on history just by dreaming of it? Well, to tell you the truth, if you just spared a glance, took a look around you, you'd realize you're living in the one nation in the entire world where anything is possible, where opportunity is a terrible thing to waste. Every single person has a dream, and although not everyone has the opportunity to make their dream a reality, they all deserve the right to look back one day and say, I made it. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Farhat Ali, and I am an 8th grader at Peoria Elementary. I'd like to start off by welcoming you all to the United States of America, where you can reach for the stars and beyond, where anything is possible, if you just believe that you will succeed and prosper into anything you could ever imagine, because you have the right to. On January 8th, 1947, Harry S. Truman gave a very proficient speech to Congress, and with his words, he gave us hope and encouraged us to become the person we'd always wanted to be. Through the message that he sent, he stated, America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. He showed us that giving up was not an option, and he encouraged us to face our fears, and he encouraged us to work together to create a better nation. Because creating a better nation cannot be accomplished by one person, but by the cooperation of everyone. Every day, men and women, and so many others like Truman, teach us to become so much more than we're meant to be. Truman himself was raised to become a farmer, but he aspired to be more, and that passion for greatness led him to become the 33rd President of the United States. More than once, our nation's leaders have taught us that we're more than just a name, number, or another statistic. They have put our lives in front of their own. Throughout the history of America, we haven't failed to prove that we are capable of accomplishing anything. Whether it was the women's suffrage movement in the 1920s, where a few women believed they should be treated equally to men, or the Depression in the 1930s that shook but did not break us, proving that we truly could overcome the worst, or the Civil Rights Movement, where so many Americans came together to show that it didn't matter whether you were a woman or a man, black or white, old or young. No one had any right to judge you. In 2002, my family won the green card lottery, which is basically a ticket that allows us entry into the United States. Prior to 2013, 55,000 people from all walks of life, from all across the world were chosen, and my family had the hard decision of whether or not to completely relocate and start our lives all over again in a brand new country. A year later, we boarded a plane headed to America. And on November 8th, 2003, we landed in Arizona. Today I can proudly stand in front of all of you and say that I am so happy we made the decision to move here. Life could never be better, and although we've hit many, many bumps in the road, our friends, family, neighbors, and country have helped us back on our feet. My love for this great nation is more than I could ever put into words. Sadly, so many brave men and women have passed away, but with us leave their wisdom, courage, and determination. We can truly look back and say that we've built a nation so dynamic, an economy so progressive, that each and every one of us can feel pride, security, and opportunity for ourselves and our family. America continues to be stronger, and true to Truman's words, we've built our nation not out of fear, but of pride, generosity, and every single bump we've hit in the road, out of love, knowledge, and use of our resources. And I can truly say that it doesn't matter who wins, because each and every one of us has just left our mark on history. Just by being here in America, you have shown us all that living in a nation that guarantees us jobs, equality, and health care for families that just can't make it on their own should not be taken for granted. And my hope is that I will leave you today with a newfound patriotism for your country, so that one day we can all look back and say that I made it. I am not just another name, number, or statistic. I am the next generation, and I have just left my mark on the world. Thank you.
Maddie, you can do anything you want to do in life. That's what I've been told my whole life. From the time I was a preschooler watching Blue's Clues to today, being president in National Junior Honor Society. In America, we have a unique opportunity to go for our dreams. No matter what our background, race, or economic status is, we are only limited by our desire and ambition. As Lyndon B. Johnson stated, "For this is what America is all about. It is the uncrossed desert and the unclimbed ridge. It is the star that is not reached and the harvest that is sleeping in the unplowed ground." This concept captures the best of the American spirit. Since the days of the American Revolution, when the colonists fought for their freedom, Americans have always believed that we have unlimited potential. And this belief is what makes our country the greatest in the world. As we all have been watching and celebrating the Winter Olympics, Johnson's quote makes me think of all of our Olympians who worked so hard for the opportunity to represent our country in front of the whole world. Nothing makes those Olympians more proud than winning a gold medal and hearing our national anthem playing, realizing that they crossed that desert, they climbed that ridge, and they reached that star. That they accomplished something that many others would only dream of doing. That they pushed themselves from being good enough to being the best. Billy Mills is one of those Olympians that reminds me of how here in America, anyone can go out and make their own opportunities. Billy grew up in poverty and was orphaned at the age of 12. Rather than lose hope, he instead chose to turn to sports. He saw that star and never stopped reaching for it. And in 1964, he became the first American to win a gold medal in the 10,000 meter race. Bonnie Blair also embodies the American spirit that helped her overcome poverty. She relied on family and friends to raise the money to help her cross the desert, and eventually earned her a chance to compete in 4 different Olympics between 1984 and 1992, where she won a total of 5 gold and 1 bronze medal. Having Crohn's disease slowed Carrie Johnson down a bit, but she wasn't going to let it rule her life. Carrie worked out, and little by little, she grew enough strength to make it on the U.S. women's kayaking team and achieve her athletic goals. In 2008, she qualified for her next Olympic team and stayed healthy until 2009, when she had another flare-up. But she pushed through it. And in 2012, she competed in her 3rd Olympic Games and proved no disease can stop a dream or stop you from climbing any ridge. For this is what America is all about. America is about pushing boundaries and achieving things you never thought you could achieve. Whether your goal is to go to an Ivy League school, become President of the United States, or represent our country for the Winter Olympics, everyone has the opportunity to reach for our goals and take advantage of the opportunity that the founders of our country fought to give us. And when you get to the end of the desert and to the top of the ridge, don't stop there. Keep pushing until you reach that star. By going and pushing for your dreams, you might not only be changing your life, but you may also be inspiring others as well. So don't stop at just being good enough. Push to be the best. Conquer the desert and find new challenges. Thank you.
Welcome, parents, guests, and fellow contestants. What was America built on? Was it built on fear? No. America was not built on fear. It was built on courage, an imagination, and an unbeatable determination. This was once said by Harry S. Truman. But what does it really mean? It could practically mean anything. But what if we broke this quote into pieces? Wouldn't that help? Courage, imagination, determination. Do we actually have any of these qualities? Well, let's think about it. Let's go back to the Civil War. Who then had courage? A lot of people, right? But let's focus on one person. That person would be Harriet Tubman. Well, if you don't know who Harriet Tubman is, I'll fill you in right now. Harriet Tubman was a runaway slave who became a conductor in the Underground Railroad. That wouldn't have been easy, right? What if she got caught? What if someone sold her out? What if? There were so many what ifs, so how did she do it? Wasn't she scared? Of course she was. Because if she got caught, she'd either get killed or sent back to be a slave. But she had courage, and for her, that's all she needed. That's what the courage part of the quote meant. As long as you have courage and you work towards your ambitions, you'll be more likely to succeed. Like Harriet Tubman, who wanted to help slaves escape using the Underground Railroad, and she did. Okay, we're still in the Civil War, but this time it's Abraham Lincoln. Exactly what was he trying to accomplish in his term as president? Was he trying to create a food recipe? No. He was trying to abolish slavery. Obviously, he had an idea or a process for him to be able to abolish slavery. He did not want to abolish slavery because people told him to. He wanted to abolish slavery because he had imagined how life would be like, where slavery did not exist and everyone was equal. You cannot do something without imagining how it's going to happen, what's going to happen within the process, and what's going to happen after the process. Yes, sometimes it doesn't go as planned, but nothing ever does. But it is better than walking to a war with a blank mind. Have hope, courage, and imagination. Imagine that everything will be fine. Hope and courage, that'll go as planned. Determination. A lot of women in the Civil War had determination. They were determined to fight in the war. Sadly, at that time, it was against the law. So what they did was they cross-dressed as men and joined the war. One of those women was Frances Cleland Clayton. Frances wanted to fight in the war, but sadly, like all those other women, she was discriminated against because she was a woman. So what she did was she cross-dressed as a man, changed her name to Jack Williams, and joined the war. No one ever realized Frances was a woman because she was tall, masculine, and tan. She had also worked on perfecting manly activities such as drinking, smoking, etc. She had served in the war for several months and fought in 17 battles. Now that is real determination. To work towards your goal because you want it, not because you are being forced to do it. Do you get it now? America was not built on fear, it was built on courage, an imagination, and an unbeatable determination. It means America was built to accomplish something. It wasn't built for us, we had to build it ourselves. We had to go through things not thought possible. Yes, it put us and multiple other people in fear, but we still went forward because we had courage. We had imagined how life would be like where we wouldn't have to live in fear of anything. And that is what we consider pure perfection to be. because no one wants to wake up in the morning full of fear, right? We have courage and determination to work towards the goal that we had imagined, no matter how far it is away from us, because every day we're one step closer. Thank you.
Patriotism. When you hear that word, what comes to your mind? America's flag, the military. Thank you, judges, fellow contestants, members in the audience for being here today. There are 3 words that come to my mind when I hear that word, patriotism. Duty, honor, country. There's a man who thought similar as I did, General Douglas MacArthur. He even once said, duty, honor, country. Those 3 hollowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be. Now, there are many ways to interpret this quote. How I took it is that he's saying those 3 simple words classify and define an American patriot. Duty. Americans have to do their daily duty, even if that means fighting a war or picking up a piece of trash. Honor. Have faith in America. You won't be let down. And embrace that side of you. Country. This is your country. Cherish it and believe in our decisions. This is your home. Be happy with it. This quote is very powerful to me because I can, and we all can, relate it to our lives. It's how we understand things as humans. Patriots are a huge part of our community. Imagine, everybody hated America. There would be a lot of civil wars, nobody would work, and there probably wouldn't even be democracy. Now, that's a very scary picture to think of. And that's why we need patriots, and that's why you should be a patriot. Now, I'm only in 7th grade. I still have a lot to learn about being a patriot. But I do know that being one is a great title attached with overwhelming sensations. I've noticed that all patriots, their attitude is positive, they're never stressed, and they've earned the right to love where they are in the world today. That's what I want more than anything. I know I'm only in 7th grade, but I'm surely capable of being a patriot in progress. Sometimes I feel we take our freedom for granted. There are people everywhere all over the world dying for their slim chance at it. We have become hot-headed, looking up to celebrities rather than our own patriots. It is easier to look up to an actor or singer, but I look up to my great-grandfather who fought in World War II and is still living today. I respect him because through all he's been through, he is still happy. If we can just open our eyes through America-loving eyes, then we can see a whole new world around us. If we just take a moment to realize all America has done for us, then we can think of how we can help everyone else in need. Fighting or serving for our country are good ways, but they aren't the only options. You can get a job that helps our economy or even our soldiers. The possibilities are endless. General Douglas MacArthur said this remarkable quote when he was accepting an award. I think he decided to say it when he had all eyes on him. I would have done the same thing. Duty, honor, country. Those 3 hollowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be. Imagine you were in the audience when he said that. How would you have reacted? That's something we should all take time to think about. Don't underestimate America and patriotism. They are more than you think. Duty, honor, country. 3 simple words nobody will, should, or ever forget. What do those 3 hollowed words mean to you now? Thank you.